us your name and what you do?
Sure, my name is Mike Cinsagalli, and I'm an assistant fire chief for the West Hartford Fire Department.
Assistant chief, what are the basic things you should do if your house is on fire?
Well, number one, and most importantly, you need to get out of the house and get everybody else, and don't keep it a secret. Tell your whole family that the house is on fire. And the second thing you should do is make sure that somebody goes and calls the fire department. So if your smoke alarm goes off, you make sure your parents are awake and your brothers and sisters, and go to your meeting place, because you should have a meeting place out in the front yard so that your mom and dad knows that everybody get out of the house, and call the fire department. And don't ever go back in.
Chief, you talked about a meeting place. What does that mean?
A meeting place is a place out in front of your house that you should meet, and it should be the same place every time, so that if you have a fire in your house or the fire alarm goes off, you go to that one place. It could be a tree, it could be a flower garden. It's just one place that everybody in the family identifies as the meeting place. That way, when you get out of the house, your mom and dad can tell that everybody's out and all together.
What do you do if there's a fire and you're home alone?
Oh, that's a good question. If you're home alone, the first thing you should do is get out of the house. Don't stop and pick up your cat or your goldfish or your sweater. Just get out of the house and run to a neighbor's house. And then the next thing you should do is make sure that somebody calls the fire department. It's very important. Just get out of the house.
Why? Where is a fire most likely to start?
In your kitchen. We have the number one cause of fires in a house today is kitchen fires, which means that people aren't very good cooks. But because people, they start cooking and then they have to do other things like take the laundry out of the dryer or go answer the door or start talking on the phone or start watching TV, and they forget that they have stuff on the stove. And that's when trouble happens.
What do you have to do to become a firefighter?
Well, first of all, you have to go to school. Our firefighters in West Hartford, most of them have college, all of them have college education and college degrees, some of them in chemistry, some of them in training, and some of them in firefighting. But you have to go to school, which means that you have to start now at 12 or 8 or 6 years old to start becoming a firefighter. And then we have to take a test. And in the test, there are a lot of sometimes 400 people looking for that one firefighter job that you're taking a test for. So you have to take a competitive examination, and then we have to take an oral test, which means that we go up in front of a panel of other firemen, and they ask us questions on firefighting, and we have to answer them. And then if we pass our written test and we pass our oral exam, then we have to go for the physical exam. And the physical exam is that you have to climb a ladder, you have to take a 150-pound dummy, and you have to carry it like 100 feet, and you have to carry a length of hose upstairs, and it's all physical challenges. It's almost like an obstacle course to see if we're fit enough to do the job. And then if we pass that, we have to go for a doctor's physical, who checks our heart and checks our lung and checks our head and makes sure that we're physically fit to do the job. Then if we pass that, the final part is we have to convince the fire chief to hire us, so we have to go for an interview with the fire chief. Sometimes it takes like 6 or 7 months from the time you apply for the job to the time you find out if you got the job.
Chief, why did you become a firefighter?
Well, when I was a little boy, my grandfather was a fireman, and my uncle was a firefighter. And they used to take me around to the fire stations all the time. So I used to hang out at the fire stations and talk to the firefighters and see what they did, and they just seemed to be like a really good bunch of guys. So when I was a little boy, I wanted to become a fireman, and then when I grew up, when I got older, I realized just how important the firemen were in the town, and that it was an important job, that they kept people safe. So that's why when I got to be older, I became a firefighter, because I wanted to help people.
How do you use a fire extinguisher?
Well, I'm glad you asked that. First thing that you have to do is take the fire extinguisher off the hook, and then you see this little pin here? Well, this pin locks the trigger. So you need to pull the pin, and I'm not going to pull the pin on this fire extinguisher because it belongs to the library. But you pull the pin, and then you take the nozzle out of the bracket, and you just point it at the base of the fire and squeeze the trigger. And the fire extinguishing agent, we call that agent, it's like dry powder, like baking soda. It comes out and it sprays on the fire and it puts the fire out. So all you have to do is pull the pin, aim the nozzle, and squeeze the trigger.
Chief, how do you choose the right fire extinguisher?
There are ABCs though, okay? There are 3 classes of fires. Class A fire is ordinary combustible fire. That's like paper and wood. In Class B fire are flammable liquid fires like gasoline or even grease that you're cooking with in your home. And a Class C fire is electrical. So there's 3 classifications of fire. A, ordinary combustibles, paper, wood. B, flammable liquids. And C, electrical. Now, your parents always told you that you never use water next to electrical things, right?
Right.
Well, it's the same thing with a fire extinguisher. You never want to use a water fire extinguisher on an electrical fire. But if you take a look at the tag on the fire extinguisher, you see the yellow stripe there? And it says A, B, and C?
Yeah.
Well, that tells you that this fire extinguisher is good for all 3 classes of fires. So it's good for ordinary combustibles, flammable liquids, and electrical fires. So when you're buying a fire extinguisher for your house or your car, you should always buy one that has ABC on it, and that way you never have to worry about grabbing the wrong fire extinguisher. Okay, so the first thing I want to tell you about this fire extinguisher is that this is a CO2 fire extinguisher, and what comes out of the nozzle here is very, very cold. It'll freeze your finger, so you want to keep your finger and your face away from the working end of the fire extinguisher, okay? So we have a fire in back of us. We have to do something. So the first thing we're going to do is pull the pin. Ready? Okay, we're close enough. Squeeze. All right. Oh. Okay. You know what?
You guys are basically in the same shop.
Squeeze it.
Viva Media!
I'm Daisy. I'm Julia.
I'm Grace.
I'm Kate.
I'm Kate.
I'm Mike.